Hi everybody, my name's Brian Evans. I am a Partner Support Manager for Computer World, and I'm really pleased to have been invited to the Define Tomorrow event. I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about one of Red Store's 4-in-1 features within our data management platform. Everything that we do is included within a single price per gig. There are no modules. Everything that we do is included within our single price per gig. So let's have a little look into archiving. Guys, this will not come as a great surprise to anyone, but I would suggest that perhaps one of the biggest challenges for the IT market as a whole is the staggering rate at which data is growing. Now, this is reflected here in the sort of anticipated revenues from big market data. But if we try to turn that through into data volumes since 2010, guys, before 2010, the global total data volumes were running sub 1 zettabyte or sub 1 billion terabytes. Fast forward to 2020, we are currently running at around 40 zettabytes. And the projection is that by 2025, we will have created approximately 150 zettabytes or 150 billion terabytes of data. Now, of all of that data, the key challenge is that most estimates, and certainly when I speak to customers and look at analysts, between 90 and 95% of the data that's sat out there on these servers hasn't been accessed for weeks, months, or years. So put another way, organizations are spending 95% of their IT budgets on the data which actually means the least to them, leading to constant disk purchases, time-consuming data management tasks, and clearly in terms of the recovery market, an extremely large amount of data that potentially needs to be sent over relatively narrow bandwidth. Now, this year has brought some significant, different, and perhaps unforeseen challenges within the data market, and they are specifically related to the supply chain. Many of you will already know, if you've been out trying to buy laptops, servers, infrastructure, hardware, lead times are horrendous. Several months is certainly not unusual, and a lot of this is down to the fact that infrastructure hardware is prioritized for effectively national infrastructure projects. Clearly, with everything that's going on, we need to ensure that our front line out there are not running out of disk. But running out of disk is exactly what we've seen started to happen in some of our customers. So what are the challenges that currently we see in terms of data storage? Well, number one is on site, your physical hardware has a limit. You can only put so much into it before you run out of space. Data's growing exponentially, and traditional archive solutions are pretty time consuming. You've got to identify where that data is, move it around, potentially secondary storage or silos of storage being created. Now, it's very difficult to restore that critical data when files are lost or removed or moved off to another media or are using third-party applications that your end users don't understand. So we're left with this situation where the vast majority of the data that's sat in your expensive primary storage is redundant, obsolete, or trivial. So archiving, very, very straightforward. So really our archiving I would describe perhaps more accurately as data tiering, because from an end user perspective, there's very little change. We covered off in our recovering from ransomware video a bit about instant data. Now, if you get your head around that concept, that's the ability for us to fool an end user and a machine into believing that data is present on that machine, but actually it's being accessed from our data centers, which will, I imagine, give you a pretty good idea on how we go about doing our archiving. So what it's all about really is freeing up that capacity, that 95% of data that hasn't been accessed for weeks, months or years, that's clogging up your tier 1 storage. Why have it sat on your tier 1 disk when maybe it hasn't been accessed for weeks, months, years, ever since it was created? It's expensive, power, heat, cooling and disk. But the key thing is that if you introduce new features into an environment which require an end user needing to do something different, very often that doesn't work out very well, because people don't like change and they don't often follow procedures properly. So really what we've looked to put in place is a platform which really mimics the way that people work today. So when our archiving is implemented, end users will see no difference at all. Once we have your data and we have a confirmed right across both of our data centers, we're then able to put an archiving policy in place, which is dictated by last access date. So say, for example, you back up 10 terabytes to us, 95% of that data hasn't changed. We're then able to archive data off this. So I'm going to use the next few slides really to explain a bit about archiving and also a bit, I guess, about how a red store deployment might not look different to, say, for the likes of, for one of comparison, Veeam. I use Veeam only because they're a very popular product on site and operate what's known as a hybrid cloud, which is predicated on site hardware. My view of a hybrid cloud is that hybrid cloud actually is marketing for not cloud, because cloud solutions don't have local hardware. So going back to the 10 terabyte example that I used in the ransomware recovery video, from that 10 terabytes, let's be generous and say 10% of that data is live. 9 terabytes of that data hasn't been accessed for weeks, months or years. Now, typically we would see 4 to 5 times the amount of backup disk compared to your primary storage. So here in this environment, if you remember, we've got 1 terabyte live, 9 terabytes of redundant, obsolete and trivial, and let's say 40 terabytes of disk to protect that. So here all of a sudden you've got 49 terabytes of disk on site to protect that 1 terabyte live. Well, actually you've got 40 here, so a little bit of poetic license. So in this picture, 10 terabytes live, all of this is still on site. So if you want to get it off site, and say with Veeam use a solution like iLand, guess what? In that data center, you'd need another 40 terabytes. So here we are, and let's just use the disks on here. 1 terabyte live, 40 terabytes of backup, 40 terabytes off, let's say between 79 and 100 terabytes of disk to protect 1 terabyte of live data. So that's what a hybrid or potentially replicated solution might look like in the old world. So let's have a look at what that might look like with Redstore. Again, we've got a 10 terabytes of storage, but guess what? There is no on-site hardware. associated with recovery, because we're able to either give instant access to unstructured data from the cloud, or we're able to prioritize recovery, bringing back that important data first. So although if you wanted to have on-site copy, you can have one. We don't see a great deal of value in it, so we don't charge for it. But if you want a local copy of your data on your hardware in your environment, you're more than welcome to. We just don't charge. But let's say that 10 terabytes, we've decided to put a not very aggressive archive policy in and say, look, if anything hasn't been accessed for a year, we'll put a policy in place to say, let's remove that redundant, obsolete and trivial data from our primary servers. We'll create the links to access that from Redstore's data centers, and hey presto, your data goes down to 4 terabytes, as opposed to 40 terabytes. And this might be a useful time to explain how we charge. So for Redstore, we just charge on the source data at your site. So that is used in production within your environment. That's what we charge on. What we don't charge on is all of the disk that we might need at the back end after all of our retention, which is 30 to 60 days plus 2 month ends, which is included within our pricing. So slight segue there, guys. I'll just flip through to the next slides. And guys, I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Adam, to give you an overview of our archiving capabilities. So I'll hand it over to Adam to take it away.
While data retention is of paramount importance, this often creates a storage burden that creates bloat on client operating systems. File servers often keep massive amounts of stale data that is not regularly accessed. The Redstore agent is able to move these files to the Redstore backup servers and replace them with stub files. This effectively frees up the space used by the files for other critical business applications. The agent-based policy will allow a client to select files for archiving based on the last accessed date. While the files are no longer located on the machine, access is easily obtained by either a user or application without the need for administrator or IT intervention. Stub files are automatically streamed and rehydrated from the Redstore service on demand.
So guys, I hope that video was useful and helped you to understand how we use streaming technology to reduce both any required on-site hardware for backup, but more importantly, also to enable you to reduce your primary storage. So where we're going with this, guys, is please try and think of us as a data management platform. Backup is the least valuable thing that we do. A backup arguably just creates a problem for you by moving your data from where you want it to somewhere else. Our value, guys, is in understanding what all of that data is, who owns it, when it was last accessed, what file types, to be able to give you true understanding and telemetry about your environment to enable you to make sensible decisions. So key to us, not backup, it's recovery, it's access, and it's archive, because that's where our true value is, guys, saving time and space for you on premise. So thanks very much for your time today. If you've got any questions, if you'd like a demo, or if you'd like a 14-day trial, please contact our friends at Computer World. And I hope you found the session useful. I'm Brian Evans. Thank you very much.